Life in Iron Age Britain. Why was it called the Iron Age? Iron makes harder, sharper tools than bronze, but it needs a much higher temperature before it will melt. By 800 BC, blacksmiths had discovered how to make iron using charcoal-fired shaft furnaces. How did people fasten their clothes together in the Iron Age? They had no zips or buttons, so they used a kind of fancy safety pin, brooches like this one. It is covered with intricate patterns. It may be green with corrosion now, but it was once covered with enamel in all kinds of bright colours. If you look very carefully, you can still see the traces of bright blue in the diamond shapes. What does this tell us about these people? They were clever craftsmen who loved to make and own beautiful things. Welcome to the Iron Age. This is a reconstructed Iron Age village at Butser in Hampshire. This is a centre for experimental archaeology. This is where historians test our understanding of the past by trying to do things people did in the past. Every building is a careful reconstruction of a real building discovered by archaeologists. Here at Butser, if a roof falls in or a crop does not grow, they know that their theories were wrong. Iron Age villages were protected from attackers by a ditch, a bank, and a fence. This is an Iron Age house. Its round walls are made of wattle and daub, a framework of woven sticks covered with a mixture of mud, straw, and animal poo. Inside, it is dark and warm, and you smell wood smoke from the open fire in the middle of the room. The smoke rises to hover above your head in the high roof. It will gradually seep out through the thatch. The oxygen levels are very low in the cone, protecting the thatch by putting out the sparks from the fire and keeping insects away. A cooking pot hangs over the fire, and the family's meal is bubbling inside. The doors will only be closed in bad weather or at night. The walls are painted with coloured clay and decorated with swirling patterns. Archaeologists found that every home tended to have the same must-have tools: an axe, an adze, a saw, different kinds of knives, needles. The activities that needed most light were carried out nearest the door, while things like shelves and beds were further back in the house, away from the draught and damp. There is a quern for grinding corn. This put bits of grit into the flour, and that wore down people's teeth as they ate. Outside there were storage pits for the grain. These were sealed off with a cap of clay, and this kept out the air and the water and stopped germination. There is also a bread oven in the house. A brushwood fire was lit inside, and then the ashes were raked out so that the bread could be slipped in to cook. People wore close-fitting trousers, braque, and a long knee-length tunic of either linen or wool. There would have been a leather belt and a cloak, a brat, and that would have been fastened at the shoulder with a brooch. Shoes were a single piece of leather wrapped around the foot and tied with a thong. Hair was worn long, and men had beards. Women spent a lot of their day spinning wool for clothes with a spindle and distaff. The spindle whorl is a weight that keeps the spindle turning evenly. The woven threads were then dyed with a range of colours from natural vegetable dyes: brown, reds, green and blue. The wool would have been woven by hand into checked patterns on a weaving loom and then sewn together using a bone or metal needle and a wool thread. Animal skins were rubbed with salt and then stretched over wooden frames to dry and cure. These skins could be used for clothing or as warm coverings for furniture. This is an Iron Age toilet. There is a shelter over a hole and a seat. Leaves and moss would have been used as toilet paper, and the clay pot held ash from the fire that was sprinkled to keep down the smell. When the hole was full, he would just dig another one. The herb garden gave flavouring for food and a host of medicines. Infusion of wild garlic was for bladder stone. Infusion of tansy got rid of intestinal worms. Figwort was widely used for healing cuts and sores, and burdock helped spots and arthritis. Down on the Iron Age farm, they grew wheat, barley, oats, rye and millet. Pigs were greatly valued by the Celts. Goats were kept for their milk and meat. Sheep were kept for their wool. Carts and heavy iron ploughs were drawn by teams of oxen. Boats were made from hollowed-out tree trunks. Some of these were so large they could cross the sea. Celtic tribes sometimes fought each other. Iron swords were the best weapons, but they also used spears and shields. Slingshots were very popular. They were easy to make and could attack an enemy that was a long way away. Hill forts with 2 or more ramparts and ditches were designed with the slingshot in mind. Heaps of slingshot pebbles have been found on the ramparts ready for use. The top of each bank was in slingshot range of the next bank, so that the attackers were always under fire. Sometimes hill forts were permanently inhabited, but often they were only used in times of trouble.